Hey guys, what's going on? It's me, Jay. I'm here to give a review on the musical movie In the Heights that was just released. Um, yeah, a few background about this movie and myself. I went to see this movie when it was just a play when it first came out in 2008 with my friend Lisa. This was the only play that I've ever seen live. And at that time, in 2008, Lin-Manuel Miranda was not the best American playwright in modern history. He was not known at all. He was unknown at that time. It was before Hamilton, before he became the modern day Shakespeare. It was his first professional play on Broadway. And when I first became aware of it was around 2006, 2005 when it was in production. He started producing it in 1999. He was inspired by Jonathan Larson's Rent. Rent was the biggest musical in the 90s. And what was different about Rent that Lin-Manuel Miranda was inspired by was that it incorporated popular music. Unlike unlike other plays, do they just did Broadway type music, show tune type music, no popular music. But Rent, they did popular music. They used rock and roll and a mix of show tunes. So Lin Manuel Miranda had the idea that he would use Latin music and he would use hip hop and incorporate that with show tunes. Also, another thing that inspired him was a play that I love, that I grew up on, that my grandmother exposed me to from early on, the movie version, West Side Story. West Side Story is, of course, Leonard Bernstein's adaptation of William Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet. And it also takes place in the Latino community in New York City. And the third thing that I was inspired by was I was with my friend Lisa at the time, like I said, and she's from Washington Heights. She grew up in the Washington Heights area of New York City, which this film and this play was centered in. That has a lot of immigrants, heavy Hispanic community. So much like West Side Story, this is very Hispanic based, the music. But unlike West Side Story, it doesn't feature any violence or tragedy, even like Rent. Rent was an adaptation of the French play La Boheme into modern times by Jonathan Larson. Um, West Side Story was an adaptation of Romeo and Juliet by Leonard Bernstein. But In the Heights is not adapted from anything else except from the mind of Lin Manuel Miranda. So this makes it unlike other stuff he's done. Hamilton was inspired by American history. Moana was inspired by Polynesian stories. In the Heights was his own creation from his own mind. So it's created from whole cloth and it's original. And it touches on modern day culture in the Latino community, in this community of Washington Heights, an area of New York that many people may not be that familiar with. People know of the Latino community in New York, but they don't really know about this area of Washington Heights. They mostly know about the Bronx, or they might know about Spanish Harlem from popular culture, but they don't really know about this area, Washington Heights, which is predominantly um, Dominican immigrants from the Dominican Republic like the character of Usnavi de la Vega, who is the bodega owner, who Lin-Manuel Miranda plays in the play, but as played by Anthony Ramos in the movie. So the story is about this bodega owner Usnavi, this girl Vanessa, and this girl uh, um, Nina, and this guy Benny. Now, Nina is um, she's left the community. She's going off to college, and um, she's coming back to visit. And basically, the neighborhood has basically stayed the same from the time that she was in Stanford to the time that she has come back. Nothing has really changed, but in the forefront, but in the background, major changes are happening. And one of the changes that is happening is gentrification. Gentrification is occurring in this community. The rents are going up like it is in real life. And these community owners, these minorities, are being forced out of their homes and forced out of their businesses. So when she comes back, she expects to see the area exactly the same, but it's not the same. It's changed. And in the play, Benny Jackson, her boyfriend, her love interest in the play, he's not. He doesn't. They never have a relationship. But in the movie, what's different about the movie version is that they did have a relationship in high school. They had a relationship, and she went off to Stanford, and um she longs to come back. Because in the neighborhood she was hot shit, but in Stanford everybody's rich, everybody's white, everybody's upper class. That's what it touches on in the song "When You're Home." Um, that her and Benny are singing together, which is my favorite song of the show. I always loved this song when I first saw the play. I always sang this song. And one of the major tensions in the play is ethnicity. Benny, the character, they don't really touch on it explicitly, but it's hinted at in the play and it's hinted at in the movie as well, is that Benny is African American. And Nina, of course, is Puerto Rican. And Benny's father, who owns this car service, he doesn't really want his daughter to marry outside of her ethnicity. He doesn't explicitly say it, but it's hinted at, especially in the Dispatch song that Benny is singing. And and the way the father really reacts to Benny, and the character Vanessa um is kind of contrast too with Nina, because Vanessa, she has dreams of escaping the barrio. She has dreams of escaping the hood, and she wants to go downtown. Now in the play, she doesn't she doesn't really have a real reason why she wants to go downtown. She just wants to go there because people down there are more rich, people down there are more sophisticated. In the movie, she wants to go there because she is an aspiring artist. And much like Usnavi now has a dream that he wants to return to the Dominican Republic. He doesn't really like New York City. He dreams about going back to the Dominican Republic. He was born there. Um, but his father had dreams for him to come to America, just like what happens. You know what I mean? But that's why he named him Usnavi. Usnavi is He saw it on the side of a ship, U.S. Navy. So he has dreams of going there. And then Claudia, Grandma Claudia, she has also dreams. And the song that's about her is 96,000 because she plays the lotto. And people don't really think that she's going to win, but she does win. And a beautiful song that is a solo of her song is Presencia y Fe, which is an old Cuban mambo number when she talks about her life in Cuba before the Cuban Revolution. Um, and every song is different. There are songs like um, the one that Benny sings that is reggaeton. There are songs that are completely rap. There are songs that are mambo numbers. There are songs that are bomba y plena, like Carnival de Barrio, where it touches on the Caribbean traditions of carnival that exist in every Caribbean nation. It's a bomba y plena number and it's a carnival number and it's the most happiest number that they have here. Um, in terms of tragedies, I don't really think there's any real tragedies in this play. Um, except for I'm not going to give away, one death that happens. I'm not going to give it completely away, and I want you guys to watch it. But there's no real tragedies. There is happiness. This play, movie, yeah, Lisa, play, movie. It's a movie about a play based on a play. So it is a movie, but when I say play, it's a play. It's a film based on a play. So it is a movie and it's a play. Grease is a movie and a play. West Side Story is a movie and a play. So yes, I mean movies. Thank you for correcting me on that. I mean the movie, but also could could apply to a play. This is a a movie based on a play that already existed. So Fiddler on the Roof is a movie and a play. This is a movie and a play. West Side Story is and that's another movie I wanted to mention that this is very familiar to, kind of reminded me of. I am a huge fan of music. I love musicals. I love West Side Story. I love Les Mis. Even I love even when they were on TV, Glee, which was a musical set in a high school. Which, if it had wrestling in it, would have been, or history, it would have been the perfect musical for me. But with this one kind of reminded me of Fiddler on the. Yeah, Lisa was saying it's crazy how the play version gentrification was talked about, but in 2008 it wasn't a big issue as it is now in 2021. Absolutely, Lisa, you're right. It wasn't, but it was starting to be with Harlem and with the Washington Heights area. But this kind of reminded me of Fiddler on the Roof because if you think about it, there's a scene in here where the lights go out right before they do the Carnival de Barrio. And that is a scene that could be kind of like in Fiddler on the Roof when they did La Hayam. Because in Fiddler on the Roof, the population is about to be kicked out of their home. They're about to be kicked out of that little town in Ukraine because of anti-Semitism, and but they still manage to be happy. So in this one too, this was kind of like Fiddler on the Roof, where yeah, they're being kicked out of their home, their area is being gentrified, but they still manage to have happiness in their life. They still manage to enjoy life. Just so their version of this their version of L'Haim is the Carnival de Barrio song, just like Fiddler on the Roof, L'Haim. You know, like uh, they are celebrating life, just like that. Even though what they're about to experience is something traumatic. They're about to experience the loss of their home, the loss of their businesses, but they still manage to be happy. They still manage to enjoy life because they say that is part of the Latino culture. That the Latino culture is happy and the Latino culture is joyous even in sorrow. I don't know necessarily. I think this could have been written about African Americans. This could have been written about, like I said, Fiddler on the Roof, Jewish people, any group. Lisa says, "What version of the of?" And I'd like the play version, Lisa. Yes, the movie version was very beautiful, but the play version, because we went to see it, because it was it was new. Nobody was talking about Lin-Manuel Miranda before that. Lin-Manuel Miranda wasn't even on the lips of people. If you asked people at that time who was the best playwright, they probably would have said, well, Elton John because he wrote The Lion King, or whoever wrote Wicked, or Andrew Lloyd Webber because he wrote Cats. And the thing about this is it's very hard to do a play movie because Lisa and I have discussed this before. We mostly talked about this on the phone, but I've never really come out and said this, but it's very hard, like I've often said to her, it's very hard to do um, uh, for play actors on stage, to make that transition to movies, because movies are missing a live audience, which the play actors feed off of. The play actors play onto. It's a different kind of acting. So oftentimes movie musicals are not good. You know, people say, "Oh, I hate musicals," but why though? Because when they transition to movies, they oftentimes they suck. You have a few exceptions like West Side Story, like Grease, like Fiddler on the Roof, and like this. But look at 2019's Cats. 2019's Cats was one of the worst movies ever made. That shit sucked. And that was one of the best plays ever made. But when they made it to movies, it was like it was a fart in church. It really didn't go over all that well. It's for the same reason that wrestlers don't really make good movie actors, because wrestlers play off the live crowd just like stage actors. So it's a different transition. It doesn't transition all that well. But this one does. This one hits hit, hits home. Um, this one is good. It's difficult. That they pulled it off, but it hits well. I think too because one of the reasons why I think that is the case is because a lot of people didn't know the musical. You know what I mean? Like they didn't go to see the musical. Lin Manuel, this was a hit on Broadway, but Lin Manuel Miranda didn't become what he is today until really Hamilton. You know, so since a lot of people didn't really see the musical, this is something new to a lot of people. Whereas it's not new to me because I knew the musical and I knew the musical real well. Because even after I saw it in 2008, I went to the, yeah, kind of, Lisa. You know, I wouldn't really know because I didn't grow up in that area. You know, you know what I mean. But I mean, kind of. It really did kind of look like, you know, Washington Heights. But one of the things I was going to say, they filmed it at the pool in Washington Heights, High Bridge Pool. One of the things I was going to say was I bought the soundtrack after I went to see the show because I fell in love with the show. Um, uh, for the same reason I fell in love with Rent. You know, I knew the songs from Rent like La Vie Boheme. Um, uh, you know, almost by heart. I can't really recite them, right now. But see, Rent was an example too. When Rent came out in 2005, it sucked as a movie. you know, like everybody had these expectations that it was going to be a great movie, but when it came out as a movie, eh, just like with Cats. But to Lisa's question, did it capture the neighborhood essence? I feel it did. You know, um, it is a neighborhood that not a lot of people know about. You know, if you ask tens of thousands of people here in the United States, name a Latino neighborhood, they'll probably name a neighborhood in the Bronx, like I said, or Spanish Harlem, or East LA, or Hialeah, Miami, but or Little Havana, Miami. But they won't really name Washington Heights, and Washington Heights is one of the top neighborhoods. So, to Lisa's question, yes, I feel it did capture the essence of the neighborhood as far as the Latino side of it. Being Latinos. You know what I mean? It's an all Latino cast, but the director is not Hispanic. The director is John Chu, the director of Crazy Rich Asians. And I don't know why they chose him as the director because this was a perfect opportunity, like Black Panther was, to have a Latino director. There are plenty of up and coming Latino directors that could have directed this film, and they had an Asian director. And I don't know why he chose an Asian director. Um, maybe because he had an experience maybe in dealing with ethnic type characters, but Crazy Rich Asians is something totally different than this. You know what I mean? Crazy Rich Asians is not a musical. Crazy Rich Asians is not a stage play. It's not an adaptation of source material, really. So when you have source material, that's the problem when you have source material. When you have a book or you have a movie or you have a play that you're adapting something from, there are fans already going into it that know the ins and outs of it, that are fans of it. And you have to stay truthful and faithful to what the source material is. And when that's a play, that is very hard to do. You know what I mean? Because people in their minds will remember the play. Oh, that's not like the play. The songs are not as good. This play had Jordan Sparks in it when it was on Broadway. Not when I seen it, you know what I mean? Because she came in later. But uh, later on, she was brought in to play the part of Vanessa. Why couldn't she have played the part of Vanessa in this movie version? Even though Jordan Sparks is not Hispanic, she was in the play, so she could have played. Lin-Manuel Miranda is not in the movie as the role of Usnavi, but he is in the movie. Um, so for people that want to know, is he in the movie? Yes, he's in the movie, but he's not in the movie in the role that he was in the original. So that's one of the changes. There are minor changes from the play to the movie, but basically it stays faithful to what the play was. Minor changes, but not having a Hispanic director robbed this film, I feel like, of the kind of experience that the kind of experience that Black Panther had. Black Panther had an experience, and I'm not comparing them. Okay, let's take Black Panther out of it. Okay, Crazy Rich Asians. Crazy Rich Asians. The director is Asian. The writers are Asian. The cast is Asian. Everything is Asian. Remember what Gina Rodriguez got roasted on when she was talking about Black Panther and how this could have been for Latinos. This could have been our version of Black Panther. All Hispanic cast, Hispanic director, Hispanic stage writer, everything. No, he is not, Lisa. He is actually playing the Piragua man. Um, the Piragua song, and for those that don't know what Piragua is, any New York City neighborhood you go to, it's a Spanish icy. It's an icy in the form of a pyramid. That's why they call it a piragua, pyramid in Spanish. That you go to. That's a traditional Hispanic summertime dessert. And in the in the play, um, and in the movie, the piragua man is singing how Mr. Frosty, the ice cream truck man, is taking over his business. So it's kind of symbolic of how the big corporations and the rich people, right, are coming in to take over Washington Heights, the gentrification, because even this Piragua man is being pushed out of the neighborhood by Mr. Frosty, the big bully Mr. Frosty. The corporatism of Mr. Frosty is taking over the Washington Heights area. The immigrant experience, the Hispanic experience, is being ripped apart from this neighborhood. Basically, the soul of the area is being ripped apart. But yeah, what Gina Rodriguez wanted in Black Panther, yes, it's not a superhero movie. People are sick of those by now. But it is an all Hispanic movie. It is a Hispanic cast, and it does speak to the Hispanic American experience, even where it touches on immigration. Now, there's something it doesn't touch on in the play, but it does touch on in the movie. Sonny, who is the cousin of Usnavi, has a line in one of the songs where he talks about immigration. He talks about how they're being racist against the immigrants and they're having no immigrant debate and they're trying to keep the immigrants out of Hispanic immigrants out of America. You know what I mean? So that's not something touched on in 2008, but that is something touched on in the new movie because that is a topical debate. Hell, it's here on the news. You have Guatemalan immigrants, El Salvadorian immigrants, and other Hispanic immigrants coming right across the border as we speak, right on the news. Um, Being anti-Hispanic immigration, build the wall. That was the centerpiece of Donald Trump's campaign in 2016. We've been talking about forever in this country, but it really wasn't an issue in 2008 when the play first came out, but it is an issue right now. Donald Trump's name is in one of the raps, but it was removed in in the play and replaced with Tiger Woods. That's one of the changes too. Donald Trump is not given a shout out in the play for obvious reasons. I mean, him and Lin-Manuel Miranda had it out, a couple of years back when Pence went to the Hamilton play. So he was completely written out, and plus he was against Hispanic immigrants. So why would you know why would they give him a shout out? But no, they said he doesn't. He plays a different part. But I feel like there is an ambiance to New York that when you have a director from New York, and again, this guy that is the director, not only is he not Hispanic, he's not from New York. He named his son Heights or whatever because he was a huge fan of that music. I get that he's a fan of it. You know what I mean? But there is an ambiance of in movies like this when you're from New York. West Side Story captures this. All Woody Allen movies capture this. A lot of Spike Lee movies capture this, especially Do the Right Thing. And the original play In the Heights captures this. There is a feeling in New York that doesn't exist in other parts of the world and other parts of the culture. I'm sure every city has their flavor. But but um being I'm from New York, being I'm from this culture, this Hispanic subculture, and being from New York, I love the movies from New York. And if you're not from New York, you can't really know what New York, that New York ism is. Lisa says they should have kept his name in the song. Um, I don't, maybe, but New York ism, the New York flavor, the New York feel, is not. I mean, it's there in the movie, but it's not as much as it is in the play. The feel of New York is in the play. The feel of New York is in the movie too, but not as much. Not to me. You know, I don't really know how to describe it. New York is different. Like, New York is not California. New York is not London. New York is not Paris. New York is New York. And since this is set in New York, I feel like the director should have been from New York. You know what I mean? Like, that is the only negative part that I have. Not only was he not Hispanic, he wasn't from New York. Like, Lin-Manuel Miranda is New York. You know what I mean? His essence is New York. You know what I mean? He's in the category with Spike Lee. He's in the category with Martin Scorsese. He's in the category with those type of Woody Allen, those type of New York directors. Whereas those type of guys capture a different aspect of New York. You know, he captures it on the Broadway side. And it's funny because, like I was saying last night, Broadway is in New York, but it's one of the furthest things removed from the experience of the average New Yorker. The average New Yorker has never seen a Broadway play in his or her life because they're so expensive. So while they are a major part of what makes New York, New York to the outside world, to the inside New York, inside world, especially minorities, people of color, Hispanics, African Americans, we don't we don't really get a chance to see Broadway Broadway plays. I was fortunate, me and Lisa and I were fortunate to see this play when it was on Broadway before it became really expensive and before it became really popular. So for a lot of people, the movie version will be the first time that they will ever see this. You know what I mean? So That's really a good bring it. But another thing that I say that was kind of messed up is they waited too long. You know, I'm big on timing. Timing, I always say, like in my last video, I say timing is of the essence. When you when you have that opportunity to pull that trigger on something, especially in the entertainment world where everything moves so fast, you have to do it then. And for some reason, and the reason is um, the reason why the movie version was stuck in production hell for uh, exactly, Lisa. The reason why this film was stuck in production hell for as long as it was because the original movie was produced by Harvey Weinstein's film company. And Harvey Weinstein, of course, we all know what he was up to. So, being as though that was the case, that delayed this movie from being shot in a timely manner. So, we always heard about the movie coming out, the movie version, people that were fans of the show would play, but we never, it was talk. Again, I always say timing, my last video. When you have a chance to push a certain talent, and no, when we saw it, Lisa, it was just coming on Broadway. It just premiered on Broadway because we did see it on Broadway. Because I'll never forget going there with you that day and seeing it because it was a Broadway play, first time ever going to see a Broadway show, and also because that's when Brock Lesnar was fighting. I mentioned this in the Brock Lesnar video when he was fighting for the UFC championship against Randy Couture, and it was one of our first dates. So those three things will never allow me to forget it. But it was Broadway. It was, it just came on Broadway when we went to see it. So, but it hadn't blown up yet. It hadn't won the Tony. It hadn't become expensive. One of the things that was Hamilton was okay when he came out with Hamilton. He was already established as a director. You know what I mean? It was sort of like if you could have seen uh, Andrew Lloyd Webber in his first play, or if you could have seen George Lucas before he made Star Wars, before he blew up in 1977, when he made THX 1138. This was like seeing Lin-Manuel Miranda right before Lin-Manuel Miranda became what Lin-Manuel Miranda eventually became, the phenomenon that he became. I say this man, Lin-Manuel Miranda, is, I was telling my mother, that he is the Shakespeare of the modern era. If you ask anybody on the street, the common person, the common man, the common woman, name me one Broadway, name me one playwright, and they're not going to go to Lord Bernard Shaw. They're not going to go to say get those guys, Lord Bernard Shaw, William Shakespeare, any of those classical playwrights that we learn about in English class. A modern day playwright, it's got to be Lin-Manuel Miranda. He's the guy. He is to use an analogy, he is what Jonathan Larson would have been if Jonathan Larson didn't die. He is the best playwright of the modern era. Moana, huge phenomenon. Hamilton, huge phenomenon. But this is special because this is his culture, this is his area, and this is his experience growing up as a kid because he is Nina. He plays Usnavi in the play, but he's really Nina. He is the character of Nina. Nina went to Connecticut to study. He went to Wesleyan College, also in Connecticut, to study. He probably experienced the kind of xenophobia, the kind of racism that Nina experienced. She even says in one of the songs that uh, she wishes that her family never came from Puerto Rico because she feels estranged from Puerto Rican culture because she went to a white school. So basically, Lin Manuel Miranda is her character. Instead, if he was going to write himself into the play, right? Maybe they can, Lisa. He'll have two plays on Broadway. But I'm saying if he was going to write himself into the play, he's the character of Nina because he went to a white school. He was bullied in his school when he was in the hood. In fact, there are stories that he was shoved into a trash can repeatedly by another famous New York rapper, Hispanic figure, Immortal Technique. By the underground rapper Immortal Technique and Lin Manuel Miranda went to the same high school, and Immortal Technique uh, picked on Lin, shoved him into the garbage can because, of course, Lin was a kid that was obsessed with show tunes. He was obsessed with literature, something different than the conventional experience that a lot of kids in minority communities go through. Watch some of my mixed dish reviews when I talk about how that if you like something different than what everybody else likes, you're going to be picked on, and that was what Lin Manuel Miranda was picked on in his high school. So he's kind of like I said, he's kind of like Nina. He's the Nina. What the character of Nina is, he is. But I think girls kind of um, they get kind of a pass when it comes to that because they are allowed to experiment more musically. But you know, so anyway, guys, watch this video. Watch this movie. Ch- Check out the play if you can. Like Lisa said, it has been revived on Broadway. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Peace.